All right, hello, boys, girls, ladies, and gentlemen. It's your buddy, Mr. G. Today, we are going to be talking about textures. Textures are all kinds of useful. We use textures in all of our character design and illustrations here, and a lot of times we can apply a whole different look and feel to a character just by adding textures. So we're going to go over here to classwork, and the assignment we're going to be doing today, come on, is a textures drawing tutorial. So in here we've got our assignment here, and we're going to go in here, and this is eventually what we're going to make here as I pull this up. We've got a whole bunch of different labels here and some different techniques we're going to go through here, okay? But before we go there, we're going to go ahead and get this template, okay? So to get this template, we are going to go, and this is a Photoshop document. To get this downloaded, we need to go ahead and we're just going to open this into a new window so that we can get a download symbol here in our Google Classroom. So right here we've got that download symbol. And then after we download it here, I'm going to take this and you can put it into your Cookie Fingers drive by going to My Drive and Google Drive, and then go into your Cookie Fingers and then save it in your specific class. I've already got it downloaded. Once you get it downloaded, pull this up here, you'd save it there, and then you'd open this up in Photoshop. Okay, so I've already got that open here in Photoshop, as you can see, and I have got that ready to go. Okay, we're going to start with this top row. I'm going to Command Tab and bounce back and forth here between our example. Close this guy up, go here. There's another sample page there, but we're going to be looking at this one. Okay, so we're going to do this first row here. This first row one here are all going to deal with gradients. So we're going to go jump over here. Okay, to start off, if I grab my gradient tool, which is right here, it's in the same drawer as your paint bucket tool. So if you don't see it there, it's right there. So grab the gradient tool, you just hold down and you'll have that. Okay, now the gradient tool, it makes gradients. A gradient is just a transition from one color to another, right? So there's lots of different things that we can do. Okay, but if I just go on here and let me go here and pull our layers up here. See, we got one base layer, then we got these ones with these blocks. So if I just go and grab my my gradient tool, it's going to throw that gradient on the whole box. Throws on the whole palette, right? On the whole image. So that's not what I want to do. So let's go Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, and go back. So in order to put it in one of these boxes, I need to isolate that box. So I'm going to go where that's at. I'm going to go to the My Layers panel. I can poke out the eye, make sure I'm on the right one, highlight this. And I want to go ahead, I'm just going to select one of these boxes, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here so we can see in here. Now when I grab my gradient tool and I go in here, you can see it's going to put it in there. Okay, now you can see it's going to go left, right, up, down, whichever way I pull, it's going to adjust that gradient. Okay, now I can do a couple things here. I can take and I can grab this handle here and pull it around. I can handle this. I call this the break, from where one color breaks from the other. From the black to the white is what I have here. So going from black to white, kind of where it breaks at is right there. Okay, I can also take this side here and rotate it around. Okay, up here in the control bar, remember this is our toolbar, that's what's in our hand. Right now we have the gradient tool. Up here is the control bar, that's what we can do with what's in our hand. Now some different gradients that I can pull up here. Up here, if you open up the very basic one, if you're not showing, if it's doing something weird, I always select this is your base gradient, which is just your foreground and background color, right? So I have black and white, right? So let's just change this up here. Let's go and get something fun here. I'm gonna go orange to black. That sounds good. Actually, why don't we go from our background color here, and we'll do kind of a brown color here, like that for Halloween. Okay, because it's Halloween right now around here. All right, so if we go in here and do this like this, now you can see I've changed to my foreground background colors right here, and it reflects up here. Okay, there's a lot of different presets ones. You can try any of those out. If you like one of these guys or something, you're definitely welcome to try those. And it throws those in there. Again, you can kind of see those. For today's purpose, we're just going to stick with the front and back color right now. Okay, so some other things we can do an up, left to right. We can do a central gradient, and you can see as I pull out, it goes from the center out. I can do this gradient here, and it's called a spiral, or actually an angle gradient. And again, it's going to kind of start from one edge on this slice here and go around. Then I can do a central bar one where it's going to make this bar in the center. Okay, so and then there's like a star one. So there's some different gradients in here. For the most of the time, I'm going to be using just your basic gradient. Okay, so I got my basic gradient here, and I'm going to pull from top to bottom. I'm actually going to go bottom to top because I want my dark on the bottom. Okay, now how do you adjust a gradient? Okay, before we go any further, gradients are really awesome. I put them in all kinds of my illustration. They always make it look like you're doing more than you are. Okay, so that's a bonus. But because it automatically builds kind of a value pattern in with it. Now right here, I've got this preset here, and I can double click on that. Okay, and I can double click on there. This is what I want to do. If I double click on here, it pulls up the gradient fill, and I can actually double click on this and pull up this bar. Okay, now this is the same way. I can grab it with the gradient tool, or I can double click the gradient there. Now I can adjust this, and I can completely customize this gradient from here. So let's say I want to change the color. Right, so let's say I want to go and I want to do an orange to a purple color. Okay, I can do that right there. Okay, and I say okay. Let's say I want to add another color for whatever reason. Let's go right here. All you do is click underneath here and it adds another color. Every time I click on it, it adds another color. So let's make one green. Okay, and we'll make one red. Okay, and I'll make one a yellow. Okay, and you can see I've got that, and as I move those around, I can move where those are actually going. There's a break between each color, and you can see I can adjust that break there. So that's how you make your own custom gradient there, okay? And equally easily as making your colors, adding them, I can equally just get rid of them. If you want to get rid of those colors, all you do is grab one and pull it away. Okay, most of the time I'm just going to be using my foreground and background color for most of my gradients though. Okay, so that's how you make gradients, that's how you adjust gradients. Okay, if you got that far, go ahead, hit Command S and save your progress there. Okay, now every time I make a gradient, it's going to make a gradient layer here that's going to give me a mask and a gradient layer that I can adjust, right? So I can click that and I can go up here and edit it if I want. Okay, now for right now, we're just going to leave that here. For this row, we're going to go to the next one here. We're going to do a different one, okay? Let's go ahead, and I'll go ahead and make some typography here, and we'll put underneath here. Using all my computing power here, apparently. Alright, and we're just going to type in here. So this is going to be just a gradient. Bang, bang, bang. And let's make that 18 points so you can see it. So there's just a basic gradient, okay? All right, now this next one we're going to do, I'm going to come over here and we're going to do the same thing. And we're going to make this one we're going to make and add noise to this one. So I'm going to go back here. And this is going to start with a gradient as well. So I'm going to grab my magic wand tool. Again, I'm just going to select this as white box. Magic wand selects by color. I'm going to get my gradient here, and I am going to go ahead and throw up my gradient. Okay, so there's my gradient. Same thing as before. Okay, if I wanted to adjust the color, I could. Actually, let's go ahead and we'll just go back to that first color just to make it different. Now this is the same thing, but this time we're going to add noise to this. Okay, so I'm going to go up here and I'm going to go to filter, noise, add noise. Okay, so it's going to ask me to convert this to a smart object. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, and there you'll see it actually adds this kind of grain to it here. Okay, so now I've got this grain on my layer here. Okay, now how much grain do I add? If I go up much higher than like 75, it starts to get like almost like an old TV that's out of focus, right? But you can see that I can make this kind of grain to it and make it a little granular. Okay, so it's another way of adding some different texture to it. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to do something, I don't know, like 35, 40, but you see it just makes it look a little bit grittier there. Okay, adds a little bit of noise, camera noise to it, if you will. Okay, so that's great. We're going to go ahead and move on down the road here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and grab my sample here, and I'm going to come over here with this guy. Let's make this one. This is going to be the filter gallery. Just going to delete that guy there. All right, I'm going to go back down here. Now these two, I'm going to do a couple different things with filter gallery here. I'm going to grab this one here. I'm going to grab this guy here, and I'm going to grab a gradient. Let's change our foreground and background colors here. Let's go a green, and let's go like a blue color here. So, and then we'll go up here and switch to our foreground colors again. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw that up. Okay, so there's my gradient. I got a blue to green gradient there. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and I want to go to my filter, and I'm going to go to my filter gallery this time. Okay, again, I'm going to commit to a smart object. All it's going to do is flatten it down here. Okay, now I am going to go and play around here, right? So these are pretty cool here. So this is going to add some. Now some of these are going to do some cool things, and some of them are not going to do much to it, right? And I've got some sliders here that I can play around with. Okay, I'm going to go, let's see, texturize. I can do like a stained glass effect. That's pretty cool, right? Or a cracked one. These are kind of nifty ideas here, right? There's a texturizer. Let's go for, let's see, stylize. I feel like there's one glass one on here that I like. Sketch, water paper, torn edges, plaster, reticulations, kind of neat sometimes. Halftone patterns, all kinds of different ones in here. Distort, and a glass distortion. I kind of like this one here, so I'm going to use that one for this one. Okay, and then over here you can see like how much distortion it has, and you can turn that up. You can turn the smoothness of it up and down, and kind of see it's going to make some different thing. You can kind of make it much bigger or much smaller. So kind of playing around with that to get some textures. You can see this adds a little bit of like the effect of like a surface quality to it, right? And I could say glass. There's an ocean ripple. I think I like the diffuse glass. Now let's stick with the glass here like that. Okay, so we'll do that one. Okay, and we'll say okay. Okay, so there's another texture right there. Okay, now let's go over here, and I'm going to just pick another. I'm going to get my magic wand, and I'm just going to try another filter gallery here. I'm going to go ahead and click this one here, and again I'm going to start with a gradient, and I go ahead and I'll choose one of my gradients here. Let's go clouds, grays, greens. How about this guy here? And I'm going to go this way this time for this guy. Okay, and again I'm just going to go to the filter gallery again and try something else. I'll go to filter, and I'm going to go to my filter gallery. Okay, I'll convert to rasterize to it. Okay, and you can see my picture. I don't know why it's got so big there. Okay, there's that glass. All right, so let's try something different here. Why don't we try that mosaic a little bit here, just because that's kind of a cool texture, kind of like a lizard skin there. But let's make my cell size a lot bigger, and you can see I can make that so I can make the border a little bit thicker on it if I want. Let's make that cell, let's go a lot bigger, kind of like that, and light intensity. See what it does there. I kind of like that. That looks neat. Okay, so there's a lot of different ones you can play around with in there. So that is the filter gallery, right? So there is my row that I've done with my gradients. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go up here to the top here, and I'm going to go ahead and take all this just to simplify things, and I'm going to put that all into a folder. Grab all those by holding down Shift. I'm going to hit Command G, put them all in a folder. I'm just going to collapse those guys down. Okay, super. Let's move on to our next row. Hit Command S if you haven't saved that. Okay, so our next thing we're going to do is we're going to jump back over here to Google. Okay, our next one is going to be a metal effect, right? So this would work for metal, or this could work for glass. A lot of different things that you could do with this, but I am going to try to do kind of like this gold brass kind of look here. Okay, so or maybe just for fun, maybe I'll try a copper one here. Now you can see it starts with like a base color, then we're going to add some strokes. So this is kind of like a step by step here, right? So that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to go Command Tab, I'm going to bounce over here. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to get my Command Z and get down here. I'm getting my magic wand, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to select these guys all up so I can kind of get them here. I'm going to kind of position here so you can see. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get not my gradient this time, but I'm going to start with just a paint bucket, okay? So I'm going to get a paint bucket. I'm going to get kind of a color I want to play with, okay? I think I want to go kind of a more red, maybe kind of a copper color kind here, okay? Now I'm going to start about a mid color. Now this is all about the color wheel and kind of going dark to light and more intense to less intense, right? So saturation goes from high all the way up to the point here, all the way back is going to go down to gray, right? So high intensity, low intensity, left and right. Dark to light is going to be up and down. All the way up is going to be a pure white, all the way down is going to be pure black. And as I move over, I can make different every color of red inside of that hue of red that I have selected right here. Okay, so I'm going to start kind of in the middle here like that. Okay, I'm going to go a little bit more intense there. I'm just going to get my paint bucket. I'm just going to dump it in each one of these guys here. Okay, now my next step, as we saw in my example here, bam. So I'm going to go take that same color, it's going to be darker here, okay? So I'm going to go and I am going to, lost my example. I'm going to go back over here to Photoshop, okay? So I'm going to get a brush. I'm going to get a soft brush here. So I'm going to go all the way to the top, just my regular brushes, and I'm going to get a soft brush here, okay? Now I'm going to grab that, okay? I'm going to make it fairly big here, okay? I've got my Wacom tablet here, okay? Now as you saw in my piece there, it was a little bit darker, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to try this out, see if it's good. I'm going to go a little bit bigger. Command Z. And I'm going to kind of make that. So that's like step one. So I'm going to do the same thing to all these here. So there I've got step one, right? So I take a base color, then I take a color and I get a little bit darker, okay? Now, I'm going to use my option key. I'm going to hold down option. You can watch my color wheel there. There's the color I started with. There's the new color I'm down there. I want to get a color kind of in between there, right? So I'm going to get like right around there, right? I'm going to put it on there. That looks good, okay? Command Z, okay? And my second step here is I'm just going to kind of add this third stroke here, right? And I'm kind of hit right between there, okay? It's kind of just a buildup of layers that is going to show a differentiation of that, okay? So now I've got that. Now I'm going to go back over here to look at my next step in my bam, okay? So I got that. Now right over here, I've got a little bit of complement color here, right? So I got a complement, and then my last step is going to be some highlights, and we're going to bevel these edges, right? So I'm going to go and do those two steps now, okay? I'm going to go back to Photoshop here. So I'm going to go to complement, right? So I generally go with a complement when I'm doing this metal effect, right? Because it usually shows good contrast. But usually metallics and like chromes and glass, they reflect the things that are around them in the room, right? So if you have in your environment some, you're in a forest and there's lots of greens around, maybe you would reflect a green. Or if you're near fire, maybe you'd wreck some reds and oranges and yellows, right? But I'm going to go here, I'm right over here, and I'm just going to go ahead and grab the complement on the other side here. And I'm just going to kind of nick the edge, and I might put a little bit on the other side too, a little less of that. Just kind of kiss the edge like that, give a little bit, okay? And you can also add a little bit up here if you wanted, okay? I'm going to leave it like that for right now, okay? Now I'm just going to go get some highlight, just some whites, right? So I'm going to go here again. I'm going to go back to that base color, and I'm going to go a lot lighter, okay? You can see it up there, and I'm going to go a little bit smaller. Let me zoom in here so you can kind of see this last step here. Now I'm going to go and I'm going to put a highlight right up against this other one, and I might do a couple stripes. Command Z, Command Z. Kind of do it a couple times till you're happy. Maybe Command Z. So I kind of have this. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to get some pure white, and I'm going to go a lot smaller, and this time I'm going to switch to a hard brush. How about this hard pressure soft? I'm going to hard pressure around size here, right? I'm going to go a little bit smaller here, right? And I'm just going to kind of put a couple pure white highlights on there. Okay, now I'm going to go back on here. I'm going to go back to a just soft brush again here. Okay, and I'm going to take that. I'm going to go and I'm going to add a beveled edge on the side here. I'm just going to get some of this light color. I'm just going to go a little bit bigger, and I'm just going to kind of kiss the edge here to kind of make an edge here, right? So I can kind of make these two edges like they're kind of catching a little bit extra light. And I'm going to take that super dark here, and I'm going to go down here, and I'm just going to kiss these bottom edges, and I'm just kissing the edges here. I'm holding down shift so I can draw in a straight line up and down, and I can just kind of hit those really quick. And if you need to go a little bit darker, I can even go a little bit darker so I get that kind of nice definition down here on the corner. Okay, and then Command D, and then when I back out, I kind of have this metallic, or kind of like almost like a glass tile kind of look to it. Okay, so that's another way to do it with kind. You can do this, and you could do this and layer it up and play with opacities and do some glasses and different things. Okay, excellent. If you got that far, go ahead and hit Command S. We're going to go ahead, and those are already plopped down there. Okay, so we are going to, we can label that if we want. We'll go ahead and grab typography, and we'll just say right down here, and we'll type metallic effect. And then we'll hit Command S. Okay. All right. Done with that one. We're going to go ahead and we're moving on. We're going to go ahead and Command Tab, go back to Google Classroom here real quick. Look at our example one more time. We're going to click on there. All right. Next ones are going to deal with some rust. We're going to try and make rust, and we're going to make splatters, right? So I got orange tiles, I got blue tiles, and we're going to try and do some rust and some splatters here. Okay. So we're going to go back down to Google Classroom. Okay. I'm going to get like kind of a nice orange here. There we go, and I'm going to be on these tiles right up here, so I'm going to go ahead and isolate them again. I'm going to grab my magic wand, hold down shift, and select those multiple tiles. I'm going to grab my paint bucket, and I'm just going to dump into there. Okay, now when I do this, I generally use my brushes, and I'm going to use some specific brushes, right? So I'm going to go and use this soft pressure opacity, so that means the more I press, the harder I press, it's going to use this. Or you could also use this one, which is also going to be size and opacity. Right? Let's use this one just to change it up. Okay, now I'm going to make this, and I'm going to grab just a little bit darker here, right? So I'm going to kind of do my own kind of gradient here, if you will. Okay, so I'm going to make this a little bit bigger here, and we're going to add some rust down here on this edge of this piece of metal here. We're going to pretend this is like just kind of a corroded piece of metal, and make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to kind of hit the corners of my metals there, right? I'm going to get kind of dark in the corner. So again, step one there. Okay, now I'm going to go and I'm going to switch to a different color. Now I like these spatter blushes that I've got down here for doing kind of texture here, right? So I'm going to do this spatter one right here. Okay, so this spatter one here. Okay, now if I just go on here, you can see it kind of does that, adds a little bit of texture to the edge. I'm going to make this guy a little bit smaller here. Okay, now I'm going to get just a little bit darker. I'm just kind of doing step by step here. Going here, so I'll hit all those, right? Now I'm going to get a lot darker here in like step 3, and maybe I'll get a little bit smaller. I keep changing the size here, and you can see maybe I'll put a little bit touch up here, kind of spread it around. Okay, and then I'm also going to hit a little bit of my complement color. So I've got some, I'm going to put a little bit of like some soft blues in here, and maybe I'll change my splatter brush just to make it look a little. Let's do these smaller splatters. These guys are a little bit smaller. Come on. brush is moving around on me. There we go. Okay, and I'm gonna go and just hit once, and you can kind of see that. Okay, I'm gonna get a lot lighter. Just throw that in there a little bit. Okay, okay. Get back on my layer here. And then I'm going to get a little bit of highlights here. I'm just going to go and grab here, and maybe I'll do like a little bit of highlight here. I'm going to get my brush a lot smaller. I'm going to zoom in here so I can see what I'm doing. And maybe I'll just kind of throw in here a little bit like this. I'm just kind of tapping around here. Maybe even go a little bit lighter still. Kind of gives me that rust look. Okay, now the one thing that really makes a good rust look, if I go and grab my magic lasso here, I'm just going to hold down Option because I'm going to kind of eat away at the edge of this, and I'm going to hold down my Option because I've got this selected, so I'm going to unselect parts of it. I'm just going to kind of jag it up this edge here, right? So I'm just going to kind of go, because like metal, once it starts to corrode, it starts to deteriorate, right? So I'm just going to kind of eat away a little bit at the edge of this guy here. And I'll do that, and because I have these right here, so I'm just gonna go in here and I'll just get my eraser tool here, and I'll just kind of Command Z. I've got the biggest eraser in the world. I'm just going to Command Z. I need to select inverse this guy here. And I'm just going to erase that away a little bit here, like that. Okay, it kind of jags up there. I could even go and take my lasso and even kind of pop a hole in this in a couple places by holding down Option there and getting my eraser and kind of erasing a couple holes in there as well. Okay, and then I hit Command D. And then I've got kind of a nice looking, just deteriorated piece of metal there that's all eaten up by rust. Okay. Now the next one we're going to do is going to be like some blood splatters, and we're going to add some texture to this. Okay. So I'm going to go back out here. Let's zoom out here. Okay. So we'll go ahead and label this guy here. So we got some rust. Okay. So there's my rust right there. And this one here, we're going to do a next row down here. And this one is going to be some splatters. So this could be like blood splatter or paint splatter or any kind of thing that's kind of viscous, going to fly around, you know, or just kind of like dirt and mud, kind of grit and stuff. So I'm going to get kind of a medium blue here. I'm going to get my wand, and I'm going to go ahead and get back on here, Command D, bam, 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 bam. I'm going to get my paint bucket tool, and I'm going to go ahead and drop inside of all these guys here. Boop. Okay. And let's do blood splatters. So I like, you know, this is a really cool one. And again, I'm just using those splatter brushes, right? So I'm just going to get my brush tool. And I already got one of the splatters in my hand, so I'm just going to kind of zoom in on each of these boxes here. So let's kind of just go in order here, right? So there's just some blood, right? And like, so if I just kind of go over here and maybe I try out a different one, right? So I've got Kyle's. This is the medium one. This is the one I generally use the most, right? And it's got, so this has some see-through ones and some big ones, right? Now you can really go with a lot of big sizes here. And you can see it kind of goes all over the place, right? And kind of even splatters over, okay? So one of the things with blood splatters, you know, it's like, especially if you're doing it or something like that, or paint, let's make some motor oil, or kind of some neon green alien blood or something like that, okay? You can also just, like, you know, in using these, if you allow your splatters kind of to go outside, and you can get directional with those things, right? Don't be afraid to grab like your smudge tool and kind of smudge them a little bit and things like that. Okay, And like really kind of layering them up is going to really behoove your whole idea, and using some contrast of just like color. Let's get just like a little darker here, and I'll just kind of tap in there like that. So you can use some really cool splatter effects. Okay, let's go ahead and I'm going to select this again here because I want to keep this one encapsulated here. Let's go ahead and say if I want to make a really, this is a cool effect that's like embossed, right, that you can do with this and really make like a pitted or bubbled thing. And let's go ahead and stick with that green color. We'll go ahead and go here. But this one, I'm going to do this on its own layer, and I'll tell you why here in a second. So there's my base layer, and I've just got my color in there. Now on this new layer, I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer on top of that. I'm going to try. Okay, I got a new layer on top of that. On top of here is where I'm going to put, let's try some of these green splatters here, and let's just go a lot bigger here. Right, and maybe I'll do a little bit of yellow here too. Okay, let's see what this gets me. Okay, now what I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and make my brush a lot smaller just so it's not so distracting here. I'm going to go in and do this technique here where I'm going to go ahead and on this I'm going to double click on the layer, and I'm going to pull up my layer effects. Okay, you can double click on the dead point of the layer. I'm just double clicking right here, or you can also go down here to effects and pull up it. Okay, and the one we are looking for is to bevel and emboss. Okay, it's going to pull up the menu here. Okay, and by beveling and embossing it here, let me get out of here because I want to zoom in so you guys can kind of see what's going on here. Okay, there we go. Okay, now when I do this, I'm going to click bevel and emboss, and you can immediately see it's going to go ahead and add this in here. Okay, now it's set to reset to default. All right, so it kind of comes up like that, kind of makes like it's got like some paint, so it kind of looks like a bit more textural paint, right? So I can have this go up or I can have it go down. I can play around with it, and just playing around with these specs, right? So I usually like to do this hard chisel in here. So inner bevel and go into a hard chisel or a soft chisel. It's going to add that, you know, and I like that look a little bit more. You can take the size, you can take the depth of this, and if you push it, you can see you can really get some dramatic effects on here. Okay, let's go down with that, and then you can like soften it and making it look a lot more plasticky. You can play around with the direction of the light, so you can kind of set it to whatever situation you got with this little clock here. You can add glass contour to it by playing with this meter here. I usually don't play with that a whole lot, but it's there. You're welcome to play around with it. You can make it analyzed if you want, and aliased. You can highlights on a screen, but you can change this, and these will do different things. So if I go multiply, if there was a different color underneath it. All these different things that you can do, right? That is kind of cool that you can play around with, right? And you can even turn the opacity of it up and down as well. So it's kind of cool to play around with, okay? There's also contour, and they've got some different things you can play with these. Texturize. I usually don't use this, so they're kind of nifty in certain situations, but I generally kind of play with just the bevel and emboss because there's enough settings to really kind of customize this up in here. Okay, so there's that. Those are those tools there. Okay, so I'm going to get this. I'm going to zoom out. Okay, and I'm going to hit Command D, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to simplify again here by just grabbing Shift here and then just dropping all those guys down. Okay, so now we've got some gradients and gallery effects up here. I got a metals tutorial kind of step by step. I got a rust test step by step. I got some splatters and some emboss techniques. Okay, the last one we're going to do down here is we are going to play around with putting in with different brushes. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and I'll probably do these one by one. Actually, let's just grab one of these guys. And I'm going to just grab and, I don't know, let's just put a kind of grayish green down here, and I'll just put this down here. And throw these down on all three of these. Okay, I'm going to get my wand, I'm going to select this one. Okay, now the last one is going to be about different brushes. Oop, I misspelled platter. I hit an extra W on the back there. Okay. So I'm going to grab my brush, okay? Now these brushes up here that you see, I've got a bunch of different brushes in here, and you might have a different set of brushes, but the standard set of brushes are your general brushes, your dry media, your wet media, and they got a few special effects, right? Which comes with some of those splatter effects, right? So there's all these other brushes, but there are a lot of different things that you can do with all these different brushes, right? I've got some different ones. So some different ones that I've got here, I've got an explosion brush, right? So let me grab here, and I'm going to just grab like an orange here, and I'm going to make this guy a lot smaller. One of these ones here, I'm going to show you 2 places that I can get these from. And let's say, boom. What's that thing doing there, Mr. G? It's making these little explosions here, right? So that's what it's supposed to look like. Now, that's not too impressive to me. Let's go see if there's another explosion that looks a little bit not. Explosion by photograph. Let's grab this one here, this one, and again, let's go to about, there we go, about 80. Let's see what this one goes. It's kind of a kaboom, right? So they almost look like flowers. I'm not very fond of this brush. This sucks. But let's go and see what else we got here, okay? So let's go at a different brush here. I've got some metal brushes. I got some dry rusty here. So these are kind of some, almost like stamps, really, some of these brushes. But I've got some that do some cool things and some that are less useful in some situations, right? So I got this rusty metal one here, right? So that's kind of cool. That's adding that kind of texture to it, right? I'm not too wild with those brushes. Let's see what else we got in my class. But where do I get these brushes and how do I play around with it, okay? So abstract cracks here. Let's go on the next one here. Let's click this one here and let's get my wand. Let's go over here. See what our abstract cracks one looks like. Let me get my brush. Let's go again. They come in pretty large here. Let's see what this guy. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Kind of makes it like a kind of a broken paper kind of look there. That's kind of neat, right? Go over and grab another one here. I know I've got like some bubble brushes here. Oop, nope, let's get my brushes here. But how am I getting these brushes and where are they coming from, right? So let's kind of see what else. So there's abstract. Now I load one. Okay, so there's different ones here, and I've got some different ones. Like, so here's a bubble brush, right? So I can go and play in here, and I can get these, right? So these have, and these guys are, will make bubbles, right? So that's kind of cool, and that could be very useful if you needed to make a whole bunch of bubbles, right? Okay. So where am I getting these from is my brush library, okay? So my brush library over here, I've got all my brushes. These are the same ones. It's kind of redundant information, same thing that you have up here. And over here in this little bitty tiny drop down menu, you can click on that and you can say, if you need to, you can import brushes and you can also get more brushes, right? So there's a couple ways you can do this, okay? So get more brushes, that's going to take you to the Adobe site if you have a license, okay? And we have a license, so we're going to go over here. It's going to ask us to sign in if we're not already signed in, but we're already in, okay? Now Adobe has ones practiced in like groups, right? So they've got some different ones in here that are going to be more like your traditional brushes, right? So like these watercolor brushes here. I was like, that's interesting. Let's see what that. I just say download. Okay, where's that going to put that at? Okay, I generally put it into just my downloads. I have a folder that I just call brushes and textures, right? So I'll put that in there. Okay, it's going to be a ABR file. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and replace this just so we can see that. Okay, so you can see it ends watercolor ABR, right? So then I'm going to go back to Photoshop, and to load those brushes, okay, I would go back up here. I'd click import brushes, and I'm going to go here and I'm going to be looking for that ABR file. And here's my watercolor ABR. Has this Adobe symbol for brushes. That's what the file looks like. That's the only kind of file it'll open. You can see it's not going to open any of the other ones. And I'll just say open. Okay. Now, as soon as I open those, it's going to put it into my thing. Now I have these watercolor brushes, right? So I can go in here and I have like this watercolor bristle with this really, that's kind of neat. That's neat, right? So, and I can play around with these different colors in my watercolor brushes, right? So, and playing with an opacity, watercolors are going to act like a certain way. So these are intended to kind of mimic watercolors, right? So that dark is going to stay underneath there. I'm not going to be able to overwash it just like a watercolor brush, right? So there's different ones, okay? So let's go and grab one more here. The other place we can go to get brushes aside from that is the link that is in your assignment, a place called Brush Easy. Okay, so going back to our assignment here, and you can see I've just put in some different kind of textures down here with those different brushes. Okay, so this, where's it at here? Photoshop free brushes here, okay? And this is on Brush Easy. Brush Easy is a site where they sell and give free brushes, right? So there's some different ones, okay? So, and it's searchable, right? So this is just Photoshop brushes, and I can just click brushes, right? Okay, because I've got different things. I can patterns, textures, all kinds of things that they do, okay? So let's go in here and you can immediately see I've got a bunch of different ones, right? So Painterly 3, I got some dispersion brushes we could play with. There's some wet ink, some fogs, right? But if you could think of, there's the bubble one where I got those, okay? Lens flares, that sounds fun. Here's mandala 14, it's only going to paint mandalas, right? So a lot of different ones, right? So if you can think of a really cool brush that would make something, most chances are somebody might have already made this, right? So, and this has thousands. There are 45 pages of free brushes here, right? Here's these halftone brushes, right? So let's try that. I'm going to grab this halftone brush, okay? Now, there are, just to point out, okay, there are for sale, and there are, like these ones that say premium, these are brush packs that are for sale, right? That professionals make and sell, right? Now, usually the individual ones, like I was just down here on the mandala and we clicked on that, okay? And then to load that, I'm going to say free download, okay? Now this is a merchandising site and it might show you an